This is going to be super fun. I wanted to go ahead and share with you a class that I did for our homeschool co-op where I taught the moms how to build your homeschool co-op syllabus using AI. It is an amazing class, and so I wanted to share it here. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, what is AI? AI is basically a very smart assistant that can read almost anything on the internet. It doesn't think for itself, it actually responds to what you give it. The better you explain what you need, the better it does its job. And that's pretty much it. You're not going to learn any technology today. We're just going to learn how to talk to a tool. So the free tool that we're going to be using is called Claude. There's ChatGPT, there's Gemini, all of those other AI tools. I personally think that Claude does way better when it comes to creating something like this where you're needing it to be really broken down and precise. I just think Claude does a really good job at that. And I want you to think of Claude as an assistant, a really, really capable one that will do exactly what you tell it to do, pretty much. The catch is, and if you don't pay for it, is that every time you start a new conversation with Claude, it doesn't know who you are or what you're doing. Unlike ChatGPT, which keeps memories, Claude doesn't necessarily keep memories that it transfers to each chat. But that's fine. In fact, sometimes memories can actually not do you any favors. So before we ever ask it to build anything that is Claude, we're going to hand it an instruction manual. So just like you would do with an assistant, where you wanted he or she to do exactly this one job in this one way, the instruction manual will do just that. So that instruction manual is what we'll be building next, and it tells Claude everything it needs to know: who you are, what you're teaching, how you teach, what you're trying to create. Because it's a living document, you can update it any time, which is amazing. So if your curriculum changes, there's an update that you need to make, new semester, different class, you can update it. It just grows with you. Once Claude has that document, it has everything it needs to do the heavy lifting. So now I'm going to teach you how to create that document. Also note here, but I'll also make a note again, that if you have not grabbed the homework and the complete notes from this class that goes into everything we've learned, the whole guide, all the questions, all the prompts and everything, you need to do that right now, because that will be essential for you being able to apply this class and to be able to do this effectively. So the link will be in the show notes for this episode. So if you haven't grabbed that already because you've just found this randomly on the internet and it wasn't actually shared with you through a link, no worries. Just grab that real quick before we continue on. Okay, so let's talk about building your instruction manual. So the first thing is that we have to build out a teaching profile questionnaire. So before we even touch Claude, we're going to have to answer a few questions about ourselves. Do not overthink these. There is no wrong answer. This is just telling your assistant who you are and what you need from her. So you're going to answer these questions. Like I said, make sure your homework is printed out so that you have these questions in front of you. You can either write them down on the piece of paper where you printed them, or open your notes app and do the question and then type it there. Whatever works for you, as long as these questions end up getting into Claude some way. And if you do decide just to write it on that piece of paper, fun tip is you can just take a picture of the paper, upload it into Claude, and then it can read the questions and your handwriting, and it's as good as typing it in. So, okay, let's get into the questions. So the first question is, what subject am I teaching this co-op year? So you'll need to go into the subject that you're teaching, and if you're doing multiple subjects, this is very important. If you're doing multiple subjects, you will be creating a whole different profile for the other subject. So just so you know, if you are doing multiple subjects, an even wide range of multiple grades, you will want to create a new profile for each of those. Okay, the next question is, what curriculum am I using? So the title of the curriculum and the publisher. Then you're going to do, what grade level or age range are my students? How many students are in my class? That's important because that's going to, when you do the syllabus, it's going to be able to determine how much time you have in class for whatever you're working on. Number 5 is, how would I describe my teaching style? So, for example, are you structured by the book? Are you relaxed, a little bit more discussion based, hands on, activity driven, a mix? Don't overthink this. And if you don't know your teaching style, that's fine. Just literally here, describe how you already teach at home. The way you normally teach your kids at home, that will describe your teaching style. Number 6 is, how long is each class section? So for our co-op in particular, the classes are roughly 45 minutes long. So 30 to 45 minutes long. So you'll need to look at your class and see, how long is my class? And then number 7 is, how many weeks is co-op? For us, if you're with ACA, then it's 28 weeks. We do 28 weeks for co-op. Next question, number 8, is, what will your class look like each week? So for example, will you do a short review of the previous week's homework and then you'll introduce a new subject? Or will your students do the work at home and then you'll expound on it during class? In other words, their homework is their introduction and then you'll teach more on it in class. Or will you introduce the subject in class and then send them home with the homework that helps them dig deeper into it? So that's probably going to depend a lot on what you're teaching. For me in particular, with teaching history and geography, I will be introducing the subject in class, then I will be sending them home with homework that helps them dig deeper into it. But that's really important to know whenever creating our syllabus, because we need to know, should they be doing what the homework is that will be assigned. And then number 9 is, what kind of homework do I want to assign? So for example, do you want to do reading chapters because there is a student's book that goes with that? Do you want them to be doing worksheets that you'll be either creating or that you have? Short projects, depending on what the subject is. Nothing if they're really little or you have like extra books to read. So just a general example of the type of homework that you're going to be assigning with your class. And if you don't know for sure, that's fine. Just do if your student was coming home with that for this subject that you're teaching, what is the type of homework that you would be excited that they had or that you would like to see them have, basically. And then number 10, the last question is there anything I want to make sure Claude always knows about how I teach or what matters to me in my classroom? So this is going to be completely up to your interpretation of it, or you don't have to say anything. For me, I just would answer this with basically that I really want my class to be discussion led, that I want to make sure that we don't have a bunch of busy work, that everything is on point, that we have opportunities for good discussion and good learning. And I love interaction. And so it would just be basically me just reiterating kind of what my class will look like each week and how important that is. Okay, so important note here is that once you paste your instruction manual in the Claude chat and start working, you do not need to re-upload it again every time you go into Claude unless you're starting a brand new chat. So as soon as you upload this into a chat, which we're going to have as a running chat, then Claude already is going to know everything it needs to know as long as it stays in that chat. And so you'll only have to start a fresh chat and re-upload the document if you're, like I was saying, teaching another class, or if something changes and you decide that you're wanting to restructure your class a little bit because you've done a year and you're like, didn't really love the way that worked and you want to redo something. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to be working in the same chat space so that all this information is remembered. Okay, now the next thing we're going to talk about is prompting basics. So how do you talk to your assistant? And that's what I want you to think of this chat, Claude, whatever. I want you to think of it as your assistant. So you are the brains behind this. You basically know how you want this to look theoretically, but if you are anything like me, you've probably never created a syllabus before, and you're not really even sure where to start because there's a lot of books and a lot of material, and yeah, it just seems completely overwhelming. I know that there are moms out there that are completely gifted with this, and I just love them for that. But definitely not my strong suit. So I love being able to have like a little bit of a vision in my mind and then say, okay, assistant, help me with this. Okay, so the first thing I want you to know is that a prompt is just what you type into Claude. That's all it is. That is the definition of prompt. If you've used AI at all, anything you type into your AI search engine or whatever is called a prompt. And to get the best use out of this tool, so to get the best use out of Claude, the way you talk to it completely matters. Remember that Claude is a tool. It is not a person, so it's not going to get any of the inside jokes, the sarcasm, the underhanded remarks, any of like, especially if you're from the South and you have your little sayings or whatever, it's not going to get any of that stuff. You have to be super literal with Claude or with any AI thing that you're using. You have to be super literal. Remember, it gives you exactly what you ask for. So we want to make sure we ask well. And if it doesn't give us a good result, it's probably because we didn't ask very well. I like to think about it as you would talk to a real assistant that was sitting across from you. So, say they know nothing about you at all. You wouldn't sit across from them and say, so yeah, I was just thinking maybe if you had time, maybe you could just like possibly help me figure out some stuff for my class. It's kind of like I'm a little overwhelmed with it, and I know I need to do it for this 28 weeks, but I'm just not really sure. And here's just the book I'm using. So, yeah, help me. Okay, AI's not going to respond well to that. It will respond to it and probably say, "Okay, well, what book are you using?" and it's going to try its best. But it's not going to be super helpful. What I want you to do instead is I want you to say, I need a 28-week syllabus for my American history class. Use the curriculum that I'm going to give you. 1 chapter per week. Include a short reading assignment each week. So that prompt, very, very clear. You said exactly what you needed, what the class was, that you're going to give it the resource, how much you're going to do a week. It was very, very precise. And if you printed out your homework, which I hope you did, I wrote out all the prompts for you there so you don't even have to think about this. These are the prompts I used to create my syllabus. These are tried and true. So all you have to do is a copy and paste or take a picture of it and put it into Claude, and there you will have your prompt. So don't even worry about stressing out that you need to get your prompt just perfect. I already wrote them out for you. But I do want to talk to you about 3 rules that make a good prompt, because I think that once you use AI and you are blown away by creating this syllabus for you, that you're going to want to take it to the next level and you're going to want to use it for a lot more things. So here are the 3 rules for a good prompt. The first thing is tell it what you want. Like straight up, what do you want? You don't need a backstory and then ask. You don't need to start with an outcome. You don't need any fluff. Just tell it what you want. The next rule is give it the details it needs only. You don't need to fill it in with a bunch of details. that are not necessary. Don't be like that old person that's giving directions where they're like, okay, you go about half a mile and you turn by the rock. But then if you want to detour and you want like a prettier view, then you can go like 3/4 of a mile and then you can turn by the tree and you can go that way. But then if you don't want to go that way, then you can go this other way. No, 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 no. Just tell it exactly the details it needs. Like half a mile, turn by the rock, we're done. Right? Okay. So those details in this case is going to be subject, time frame, format, anything specific to your class. Only those details. The last rule for having a good prompt is tell it what you don't want, which might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's very important. You want to tell it what you want, give the details that it needs only, and then tell it what you don't want. This is the same thing with if you were actually hiring a real life assistant. You're going to tell that assistant what you want, what you're expecting. Then you're going to give the details that she needs to know. Be like, this is exactly what we're working on. This is how the project's going to look, etc. And then you're going to tell her what you don't want. I don't want it to be this way. It needs to make sure that it's not whatever. You want to say exactly what you don't want. So, an example for this with creating our syllabus, if you hate busy work homework, which I do, and I actually put this in here, tell it. And like, I don't want any busy work homework. I think most moms don't like busy work homework. And if you don't want your students to be overwhelmed, so you want to keep it simple, say that too. Tell it exactly what you don't want. So, again, the rules. Tell it what you want, give only the details it needs, tell it what you don't want. Okay, so just for kicks and giggles, let me give you an example of a very weak, awful prompt. And it would be, can you help me with my class? If you had an assistant you were hiring and you said, can you help me with my class? They would look at you and be like, yeah, sure. What class? Right? But an example of a good, strong prompt using the 3 rules are using my instruction manual and the curriculum I've shared, create a 28-week syllabus for my 4th grade science class. We meet once a week at co-op. Each week should include the topic, what we'll cover in class, a homework plan students can complete at home, no more than 15 minutes a day for 4 days. And that's it. It's the same AI program, completely different results because you told it exactly what it needed to know. Okay, I hope that was super helpful. It's always great to know just like how to prompt well because it just really makes or breaks when it comes to using AI. So let's talk about now what a syllabus is and how do we build one. Because I think it's important for us to understand the actual framework behind a syllabus so that we know what AI is doing when we ask for it, so that we can go in and re-look at it to make sure that it's correct. Because remember, AI is a tool. Tools can make mistakes. So we want to make sure that it's actually what we want, right? So yeah, before we ask Claude to build anything, let's just know what we're actually asking for so that we know it does a good job. So a syllabus is a roadmap, basically. It tells you, your students, and their parents where you're going, how you're getting there, and what to expect along the way. Every syllabus, no matter the subject, has the same 5 parts. Side note, I didn't even know what a syllabus was until I got into this whole co-op starting gig. And so I actually went and learned this myself before I am now teaching you. So anyway, fun side note, I just learned this myself. Okay, so every syllabus, no matter the subject, has the same 5 parts. The first part is course title and description. So 1 or 2 sentences about what the class is, what the students are going to learn by the end of the year. The second is curriculum being used. So title, author, publisher, whatever the curriculum is being used. Third is what the students need. So you got to be able to give the parents like the book, supply, notebook, whatever applies list so they know what their student needs for your class. And then the fourth thing is, and in our case, we do 28 weeks. So the 28-week schedule, or if you did 30 weeks, 30-week schedule. If you did 24-week schedule, you need the week by week schedule. And if you were doing multiple days a week, you would say that it would be like 2 days a week for the next 28 weeks or whatever. Okay. So that's going to include the topic for each week, what happens in class, and the homework. And then fifth is homework expectations. So when you're building out your syllabus, you need to know like what's the homework's going to be. So how much homework, how often, what does it look like? And here's the part that's going to make this feel so much less overwhelming. Your purchased curriculum already did most of the work for you. Every curriculum has a table of contents, and the table of contents is your syllabus skeleton. It's already in order, already sequenced, already organized by topic. You're not having to invent anything from scratch. You're just mapping out what already exists into however many number of weeks you need to fit it into. So here's how that's going to work. You're going to open your books into your table of contents. You do not have to type all of this out at all. Just snap a photo of the table of contents and upload that image directly into Claude. Claude can read it and it can work right from the photo. Claude's then going to help you spread your chapters or units across the 28 weeks or however many weeks. There's probably going to be some weeks that are going to cover a lot more, so the chapter is going to be a little bit more full, and there's going to be other weeks that cover a little bit less material. And so what I've noticed with creating my own syllabus is that Claude actually flagged some of the heavier weeks and gave me a little leeway with being a little bit more focused on some weeks versus some other weeks are not quite as heavy. If there's some parts of the curriculum that you're not going to actually be using, you'll need to specify that whenever you upload that table of contents. So if you're like going to skip altogether, I don't know, chapter 2 or whatever, then you'll just need to specify that so that Claude knows, okay, I'm not taking chapter 2 into consideration. But the basic gist is the curriculum tells you what to teach, and then you're going to create the syllabus, which is going to tell you when and how. So once you have like a basic of your syllabus built, or you kind of know based on like the table of contents and what's going on, here's where I know a lot of us get stuck. So it's like, okay, I have my 28 weeks laid out, but how do I know what homework to assign? Like how much? Like where do I get the homework? Are there activities or crafts that have to go with this? Like, what do I actually need to have ready for class each week? Etc. It can feel a little bit, you're like, okay, well, I can read what the chapters are about, but then like, how do I apply all this? So most purchased curricula already tell you, you just have to look. So check like the end of each chapter. Most will have like review questions or comprehension questions or vocabulary words or suggested activities already printed right there. That is your homework list. You just have to decide how much to assign. And side note, when we're giving this prompt to build out that syllabus, if you remember, we've already talked about the type of homework that we want to assign. And so if you have a basic gist of saying like at the end of each chapter, there's like craft ideas or whatever. In my case, a lot of my resources are online. And so my idea was that the students didn't need to read like all the source documents, but then I definitely wanted them to read like the video that goes along with each class, and I wanted them to read out of their reader, and then I wanted some map study and some of the other reading documents, but not everything. And so I was very precise in telling it exactly what I wanted in those areas. And don't worry, I am going to have an example. I just literally thought of this. I will have an entire example of what my syllabus looks like and the chat thread that I used so that you are able to go and actually see how that works. However, I can't make that completely public. So if you're listening to this and you're not actually part of the co op community or something, then message me personally and I'll leave my email down in the show notes and I can share an example of that with you. But anyway, if your curriculum doesn't include these things, then just tell Claude. And then based on the table of contents, it usually can suggest like 2 or 3 simple homework options that can really help with the topic for the student. And then if you give the grade level for the student, it can hone it in there as well. And it's great for just giving you options and then you can go ahead and pick what fits there. I think you're going to find though that with the prompts I've written, it's going to actually be super helpful with giving some of those homework assignments and stuff. And also, Claude is really smart with being able to pull and know what curriculum you're using and then being able to pull online resources and then come up with what others are doing for homework as well. So don't stress about this. I just wanted to go through it just so that you kind of understood what we're doing. So, insert here, like how much homework should you assign? Of course, this is not a one size fits all at all, but just simple guide like if the children are really little, like you don't want to assign that much homework. Like just like one little activity that might take like 10 minutes, right? Very simple, very quick, just reinforces for the next week. And when we're talking about simple, it'd be like daily. So we would do 10 minutes a day and maybe for 4 days, right? And you'll just have like a little simple piece of homework for those 4 days. And then if they're older, like maybe 4th through 6th grade, it could be 15, 20 minutes per day, each school day. And then when you're doing like 7th, 8th grade and up, it could be like 20 to 30 minutes, depending on what's reasonable and what's being required for that curriculum. Again, all of this super varies. So you'll just have to use your judgment here. But just know that no mom wants to do school all day long or to come to the end of the week and have to do an entire day to try to keep up. But then also we need to make sure that the kid has enough work throughout the week that they're actually grasping the subject. So it's just going to be something you're going to have to use your call on. Since our co-op meets up once a week, then our students are going to have roughly 4 days at home with like a 5th day that they can catch up if they need to. So that's how I built these prompts out, is that there would be homework for 4 days and then you could do a 5th day for like catch up for anything that wasn't finished within those 4 days. Anyway, like I said, your curriculum is going to be the first place to look if you are needing, like, for example, if you're doing science and you're needing to know, like, what experiments or whatever, you're going to look in the curriculum for that. So, unfortunately, like, the assistant can't do all the work for you. So, you will have to have at least a base knowledge, depending on your curriculum, of what's going on in the curriculum so you know how to work it. But it can do a lot for you. So just know that there's going to be that. Like if I'm with the history curriculum, it's often going to include like timeline projects and map work or other things. And so I'll need to be aware of that and know what that looks like. And the same with other curriculums. It's not just going to be able to pull memory verses from the Bible curriculum like that. You'll have to know that. However, if you know that each week you're going to have a memory verse that's homework, you don't have to write that verse out every single week. You can just say the homework for that week will be that week's memory verse. Okay, so it'll just be something that you'll have to flip through your curriculum, of course, but you want to do that because you want to be familiar with your curriculum. You want to be teaching something you're not familiar with. So AI is not going to take that. It can't. You'll still have to do that kind of hands-on stuff yourself, but what it can do is take the, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to put all of this in order or put this down on paper. It will do that for you. So it's like, I think that's the hardest part. Like flipping through curriculum is fun for me. So anyway, if a chapter doesn't have something and you want to make sure that you are adding the good homework, then you can go in at that point when you've created your syllabus and you can say, and if you want to, you can ask Claude to help you generate activity ideas. You can just say something like, for example, I'm teaching history, so you can say we're covering American Revolutionary War in week 9. Suggest one simple in-class activity and one take-home project that's appropriate for 5th through 7th graders or whatever. I don't think we have a 5th through 7th grader class, but anyhow. And then you can say keep the in-class activity under 20 minutes. If so be precise on what you want. And then it can create that homework or that thing for you. So, anyway, let's talk about how do you know what you need for class each week. So, once you have the syllabus built and you know what your homework is, then you're just going to ask Claude to generate a simple material list. So the prompt would look something like, based on this 28-week syllabus, create a week-by-week list of anything I need to have prepared to bring to class, or I need my students to have prepared to bring to class. And then that becomes your prep checklist for the whole year. So you'll either hand in that to the parent at the beginning so they know what things they need to buy for the student, and then you'll know each week what you need to add to your bag in order to have everything that you need for your class. Okay, so now that you have all of that, and remember, please download the homework. It's got all the prompts written right there so that it does all that work for you. You don't have to think about that. Okay, so let's talk about what else Claude can do for you. So you just built an entire 28-week syllabus. Oh my goodness. That alone would have taken most people an entire weekend, if not more, like really. But here's what I really want you to hear. You are not done with Claude. You've barely scratched the surface. Remember, Claude is your assistant. You have just trained it to be the ultimate assistant. You're still the teacher though. So every idea, every discussion, every adjustment, all of that's still you. Claude does not know your students the way that you do. It does not know that one kid lights up during like a hands-on project or that your class needs a little extra review after that holiday break, right? You bring all of that. What Claude does is it handles the heavy lifting so you can spend your energy actually teaching instead of sitting around a table for 3 hours trying to figure out how to like redo your class so that it fits better. So once your syllabus is complete, you save it as a Google Doc, or you can even save it in your notes app, whatever works for you, and that document becomes your living reference for the entire year. Here's the simple rule for what to upload. So if you're asking to change a specific week, in other words, let's say in week 6, you're like, oh, it'd have been fun, like we need to add this in or whatever. You're just going to copy and paste that week's section into Claude, and then it will only see what's relevant, and then you'll ask it to come up with an idea or change or whatever. When asking about something that affects the whole year, though, you're going to upload the entire syllabus and then adjustments, overview, restructuring, whatever, anything big, it will be able to see that full picture so it knows what that looks like. Let's look at a couple or a few things that you can do, like once you have your syllabus done, and what that kind of looks like in practice so that you can get some ideas about how you can use Claude for more than just creating your syllabus. So the first thing would be discussion questions. You could totally do something like, here's week 6 of my syllabus, and you paste week 6. It's got what you're covering, your title of it, what you're doing in class, your homework, right? And then you can say, give me 5 discussion questions that I can use in my class to get my students talking. Then you can say, my students are 4th through 6th grade, right? So that's one way you can do that. You can then apply it to any other whatever, and then you can get a bunch of discussion questions. Another thing is if you're adjusting on the fly, you can totally be like, here's my full syllabus. Then you can upload your living document. Week 8 ended up taking 2 weeks instead of 1. Please adjust my remaining schedule to fit in the time I have left without dropping any major topics. And then it can readjust the entire syllabus if you were to need that. Another thing you can do is quizzes and review sheets. So you could totally go and say something like, here's week 1 through 4 of my syllabus, and you'll paste those weeks. Please create a simple 1-page review sheet that my students can use to study. So that'd be super easy just to make sure that they're grasping what you're teaching. You can also use it for ideas for in-class activities. So you could do something like, here's week 12 of my syllabus, and you'll paste week 12 only. Suggest 2 simple in-class activities, one that takes under 10 minutes and one that could fill a 20-minute block. And then you can even specify something like, I only have a budget of $20. So be very precise in that way, and it can give you ideas on activities. If you are like, wow, this lesson is not very long, but you really can't couple it with another lesson, and you just need to fill that gap, right? Another thing that's kind of cool is that you could use it to do a parent communication letter. So you could give like a full rundown of basically a little bit of an overview of what you're going to be learning in the year. You could give an overview of like the next semester, whatever. So example, you could say, here's my full syllabus, and then you'll upload that living document. Write a short, friendly 1-page letter that I can send out to parents at the start of the year or the start of the semester. Include the curriculum we're using, a general overview of the topic, and the homework expectations. And then you can just send that out to all your parents real quick, and they'll know exactly what's going on. If you need to adapt it for different ages, here's something that you can do, is that you can say, here's week 3 of my syllabus, and you'll paste week 3. I have students ranging from 2nd to 5th grade. Suggest how I can adapt the homework so that it works for both younger and older students. So if you ended up having like a larger range of class, because let's say there was enough people out there to combine a class or something, that would be a easy way to quickly be able to readjust homework or whatever to fit both the 2nd grade and the 5th graders' need. So Claude is a resource that you can go back to every single week. Whenever you need an idea, you need to adjust something, you need to prepare for a class, or you just need to think through something. It is available at any time and costs you nothing. You can pay for it, but it can cost you nothing, especially with your living document. And the more precise you are with what you need, the better it serves you. You're still the teacher. You're still the one that shows up every week. You're still the one that makes it meaningful. It's still you. Claude can just make sure that you're never actually starting from scratch. And that's really, really huge when it comes to being a homeschool mom. So, before I close today, I just want to make sure that you're not walking out of here with a head full of information and absolutely no idea what to do. So I'm going to remind you again that you need to download the homework that goes with this. It has all the prompts. It has step-by-step instructions on how to apply this class so that you know exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it, and in the order that you need to do it. So whenever you're ready, go and start planning that syllabus. I am so excited. I have built already my 2 syllabus, and it worked out amazing. If you want to see an example of what my syllabus looks like, please message me and I will share that with you. I'm not going to actually share that though publicly where it can be downloaded, just because it's got a lot of information in it. And so I would be glad to share that, but I'm not going to have that as a download. But whatever you do, make sure you go download the homework. It will be available for you, and that will help you get started right away. And so if you are a mom from our homeschool co-op, I am so pumped to be doing this year with you. And if you are just a mom who's wanting to know how to build your own homeschool syllabus, or you're also part of a co-op in another area, I am so glad that you took time to listen to this class. And as I end all my podcast episodes, until next time, go make AI work for you.